Council meeting for January 2nd, 2024. Time is now 5:31. I want to recognize that we do have Councilmember Jackson with us tonight, Councilmember Sophie Paul, Councilmember Scadden, Councilmember Joe Paul, and our new Councilmember Saxton. And we don't have our youth council members, so we'll move from there. Before we get started, I just want to recognize we do have a special guest. Davis County Commissioner Bob Stevenson's with us tonight. Okay, thanks for joining us, Bob. Okay, it's good to have you. With that, we've asked Brian, since he's new or new now, okay, newer, if he would in fact lead us in a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. So, Brian?
If we could share in a moment of silence. Thanks. Thank you. And now for the pledge.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, we do have a couple of consent items. So if you would, council, any comments or questions relative to the consent items? If not, I do have one. Hearing none? Okay, I have one. Amber, maybe you can help me. Deals with the November financial statement. I sent you the question earlier. If you look at the first page under revenue, my question is, could you remind me again? The miscellaneous revenue, we're about 179% ahead of budget.
Yeah, that category includes sale of fixed assets, and we don't budget anything in that at the beginning of the year because we're not sure what we're going to be able to sell or not. So we have 400,000 so far this year in sale of fixed assets, which relates to about 10 vehicles that we've sold. So that will get added to the budget as revenue later, and then we'll transfer that over to the capital projects to pay for future vehicles.
Perfect. Okay. So that extra money is primarily because of the vehicles we sold.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Council, any questions or comments?
Make a motion, we accept the consent items.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. I have a motion out to approve the consent items. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those are approved. Thank you. Thanks, Amber. Okay, public comment period. If you have anything you'd like to share with us during public comment, please step up to the mic, give us your name and your address on any topic. Recognizing that there's a budget opening here in a few minutes and we'll have a public hearing during that side. So you may want to focus your attentions anything but that particular budget item. But anything else? Glenda, go ahead.
Hi, Glenda Moore, 2088 West, 3825 South. I would like to ask if it would be possible for the city to leave the lights up at Harmon's behind the waterfall until the waterfall turns on, because I think that adds a nice little pop of color as you come into the city. That was all. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Okay. Any other comments or questions you'd like to share? Commissioner, name and address.
Sure, Bob Stevenson, 3110 East Fernwood Drive in Layton. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. First of all, it's good to be here and to watch a city council meeting. And one of the things I'd like to tell the people from Roy, a little bit about you, Mayor Dandoy. I serve with Bob on the Wasatch Front Regional Council, which basically is a transportation arm of UDOT and in the state of Utah for northern Utah. And I want you to know that he is one of the most important people that we have in the effort and time he puts in on that Transportation Committee is very, very commendable, and we thank you, and we need you to keep doing this, and we appreciate everything that you do along with your efforts at Hill Air Force Base. And I think as we've seen what has taken place in Royce City, the changes in that is very, very impressive, and thank the entire council for that. One of the things I'd also like to point out is the reason I am here is for Brian Saxton. I've known Brian for a number of years. I can probably tell you a lot of stories when he wrote for the Standard Examiner and I was a young city councilman in Layton. The only thing he ever got correct on articles was my name, because everything else he wrote was really way out of line. So someday I hope to be a reporter so I can report on him at the same time. But over the years, Brian and I have become very close and very good friends, and really appreciate everything that you do. And then one other thing I want to just throw out while I'm here is that, you know, if you stop and look at Davis County and you look at Roy, you guys naturally should be part of Davis County. I do not know why you guys would not want to be. Our taxes are lower. You've got a lot funner people to work with than those guys over at Weber County. So if you ever want to consider basically coming over to the good side, hey, we're there for you, and we'd be more than happy to take you in and lower your taxes. So with that, though, hey, thank you, and I appreciate everybody for, you know, putting up with me for just a minute as far as that goes. So,
Commissioner,
thanks.
thank you.
Betcha.
Interesting comments. Okay. Anybody else would like to take a moment? Okay, name and address. Thank you.
Dennis Brown, 2119 West, 6000 South. I just want to express thanks to Diane Wilson out here in the audience here for all the effort she's put forth in the last 4 years. She's put forth a lot of effort in studying the issues, working with the different departments in the city, and I think she's done a great job. I was sad to see her not decide to run again, but I want to tell her thank you so much for your great efforts, Diane, so thank you very much. And then also, I just want to say, Brian, we're glad to have you on the city council. A lot of people in the neighborhood supported you and voted for you, and I think you'll represent us well. And you have got a great family supporting you, and you have a great history. And regardless of what you said in the paper, we still support you. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks, Dennis. Okay. Anybody else like to take a moment?
I just want to say thanks to Diane Wilson. I was a little bit late for her going away party, and I understood everyone got to speak. And I just wanted to say thank you. She has been fantastic the last 4 years and came to my house a lot and helped me go figure out a lot of things. And she definitely has that doctor's brain that I don't have, and does her research, and she will truly be missed. She was a great asset to the Royce City Council.
Yeah.
I would second that.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane. Okay. Anybody else like to make a comment? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into the presentations. Chief, I believe you're going to share a discussion with us on K-9 officer retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Some of you may have been aware, some of you may not have been. Back in October, we made the unfortunate decision to retire our K-9 Mick. Mick's handler is here with me tonight. It's Officer Preston Johnson. K-9 Mick was born in Eastern Europe on January 6, 2017. On September 17, 2018, he was selected by officers from Roy PD due to his high drive. In November of 2018, Mick became both patrol and narcotics certified with his handler, Officer Johnson. Having not even been on the job for 2 years, in August of 2020, Mick had found himself between an armed suspect and Officer Johnson. When the suspect began firing rounds in their direction, K-9 Mick was hit in the head by a round, causing serious injury to his jaw and teeth and resulting in permanent nerve damage. Mick received the police star and life-saving citations for his actions, and there's no doubt that he took a round that was intended for our officers. Since becoming certified, Mick has seen a minimum of nearly 200 deployments, numerous apprehensions and drug fines, and in his short career, he had a successful career and continued working through his injuries during the last 3 years. The decision, however, unfortunately, was made to allow him to retire, to enjoy time with his family. Mick is going to retire with his family at home and spend the remainder of his life enjoying retirement with his family. I'm forever thankful for Mick's service and Officer Johnson's service as his handler during the last 5 years. Now, as we know, scheduling can sometimes be unfortunate, being the fall, and so this is something we wanted to do earlier, but as you can see over here, we have a plaque that was prepared for Mick, and his coworkers, Officer Johnson's coworkers, wanted to plan some kind of barbecue for him after tonight's meeting, and so we finally were able to get the moons aligned, and I think, is he up here? Mick's actually going to come in and say hi, so we can pay our respects.
So Matt, who did you say he was going to live with?
So he's living with Officer Johnson and his family, and behind us is his wife and son.
And I would encourage every city council member to put on the fat suit and take a hit from any of our dogs. It's awesome experience.
Anyway, while we're waiting, if the council and the mayor wouldn't mind, one of the reasons we want to do this was to show our appreciation publicly for the years of service that Officer Johnson provided with Mick. You know, he comes to work, he's a work partner, but then he also goes home, he's part of the family. And that's quite the relationship to have, right? And I thought about whether or not I would want to be canine, and the one thing I wouldn't want to do is bring my pet to work. And that was one thing that he did for a few years. And then here's Mick right here. So that will conclude my presentation. We just wanted to bring him in to say hi and let you guys thank him for his service as a council.
Thank you, Chief. Comments, council?
Did you say you had a dog that's going to take his place?
We do have one that we've just received, and we have another one we'll be getting in the summer.
Okay.
So when you get them, are they already trained, or do you train them?
They receive a brief amount of training that we use to select which dogs we're going to get, and then we train them. And my goal is when they're certified, then we will bring them and introduce them to the body.
Okay. Well, Chief, thank you. And I will indicate to you, you know, I was sitting as mayor when the event took place in Davis County. Certainly, as you've indicated, you didn't elaborate too much, but officers under fire, okay. This good officer got hit. You know, we were all part of that. We read about it, we heard about it. Difficult to see family members go through that process. Certainly difficult to see an animal of this caliber going through that process, and it has a devastating. The fact that that was able to survive as long as she did and still able to provide service is remarkable, given the damage, as you indicated, took place, and we couldn't be more proud in terms of both the contribution that's been provided, but as well as the family, in this case, officer offering to not only work with him, but more importantly, be able to be the home that he'll go home to. So thank you. I don't know how to express to a dog in terms of the kind of service, but I can certainly express to the dog trainer and the owner that simply says it was a remarkable service that was taking place here, and I'm not sure what happens next, but hopefully everything will work out good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for this service. But please, if you don't mind, would you introduce your family, because this is going to be a new permanent resident with your family.
Yeah, so my wife Lexi and my son Stetson. He's a loud one up front.
Okay.
As you can see, he's got a lot of life left in him still, just having some complications, so.
Well done, and thank you. Enjoy your retirement.
Yeah.
I hope he enjoys.
I believe you have an event taking place shortly after this, and
Yes.
heading downstairs.
Great. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate you. Thank you. Okay. Chief Williams, I believe you're going to talk another presentation talking about automatic aid. Okay, so kind of slowly move up, if you would, and we'll allow the officers and family to head downstairs.
Thanks, my brothers in blue. All right, we ready?
We are.
Mayor
Thank
and
you.
Council. So we're here to just present, to further up on the conversation we had a few months ago on the mutual aid and automatic aid reimbursement. And so, I was tasked with kind of going back and looking at some of the data and doing some research on our own. And so that's what we're presenting today. I have Chief Anderson. He helped me on some of the legwork. And part of that discussion was, the mayor provided some data, I think, which was really good data to suggest that potentially were we responding into other jurisdictions more, meaning we're giving more than we're receiving. And so tonight, I think it's important as we present this data that we did a lot of research. I appreciate Chief Anderson. And part of that, the big number that we found was, according and Mayor, we got some of the information from dispatch. And so I went to dispatch and met with them. And what they told me is well, we believe that the data that you get on your own is probably gonna be more accurate data. So that's what I charged Chief Anderson to is go through our data and what does that show us? And so I'll let Chief Anderson kind of explain quickly what he did on collecting the data. I think that would be good as a preface before we go into the rest of the data that we found. And I'll just turn over time to Chief Anderson quick.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been diving into the last 3 years of all the calls that we went into, and we used the program called Image Trend, which I think it looked like the graph that you used may have came from that too. And it is a beautiful resource. You just all the data that gets put in there, you can pull a report, and you just click what button that was pushed on that, and you can have all the calls that kind of match with that. I think a lot of the while doing this, I found a lot of errors in what we were doing, and kind of just that data itself on that graph that you used. Just real quick, it said 48 responses given and 28 received. And that is, when you look at that, when we give this aid, we're sending one truck out. If there's a fire in Ogden, we send our ladder to there. If there's a fire down in Hooper, we'll send our engine out to there. We never send both of our units outside of our city. We'll always leave one engine in here. But when we receive, the 28 calls that we receive, we actually receive a minimum of 4 trucks from different cities. We'll have Hill Air Force Base come down, Clinton, Ogden, Riverdale, all of them kind of do that. And the way that we were inputting this data, we would just click aid was received, when really we can click aid was received, and then we list everyone that came in there. And that was one of the kind of the things that I've found while we were doing that, kind of the errors of our ways. But it was, once I did all the research and I was able to kind of get around all those things by searching for postal code and what areas went there, and you'll see or if you haven't already, on our slides, that we're actually really close to give and take. There was a couple of years that we did receive more than we gave. And I did that by just looking at our fire calls, who we have coming in, and then Chief Williams also emailed all the chiefs around to give their numbers to make sure they were just kind of jiving with ours. But I'm glad this was brought to our attention. I learned a lot about these numbers, and also that we've given a training now to all our shifts on how to input this correctly. So the next time that we can just click, okay, how many times did Clinton come in this city? And it'll pop right up. Or how many times did we go into there? And we'll be able to pop it up just much faster this time. Because this time it took me weeks and months of just diving through this data. So that's about all I got.
Oh, perfect. Do you mind just going through the slide? Thank you. Can you go to the graphs real quick? So this was the original graph that you provided, and this is where we kind of took, all right, let's see if this data is correct. So this is the percentage that Chief Anderson was talking about, where the data we got from dispatch suggests that we were running 40% more than other jurisdictions. And so to answer that question and comparing it to our data, the graphs that we have next will kind of suggest that that's actually not true, just because of the way the data was collected wrong. Perfect. So this is the one now. So the pink is the mutual aid that we were receiving and then giving. And so in 2021, the data does show that statistically you could see that, yeah, we were giving more out than we were receiving in 2021. And a lot of this isn't controlled by us, right? This is the call volumes, things that we can't control as chiefs. is changing geographical areas and stacking. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go through the graphs. Could you go to the next slide? So as we move into 2022, you can see now that they start to be equalized. And some suggest that we're actually receiving more than what we're giving. So really year to year, it's something that's out of our control. But this is what we found as we compared data as chiefs sent data to us. We looked at our data and this is what we came to. And then as you go into 2023, as we're at now, you can see that we're actually averaging more aid than we're sending out. So we're receiving more, and that's just kind of how this works. And the next point I'd like to make, move the next slide, please. So you can kind of see that's really difficult to try to gauge us as chiefs. Like we do this through an agreement and how we respond, right, through the automatic aid agreement. And as you go into this slide, this was where we took, all right, should we be reimbursed and compensated? This is where the state code gives a latitude. And as I dove into this code, I wanted to kind of find out, like, where did this originate from? And what I found was talking to other chiefs, trying to do the best research I can. If you go to the next slide. What we found was this slide, or these state codes were typically made for contracts. Go to the next slide, please. And so, it's hard for me to read that from here. And the reason why they do contracts, a municipality is required to provide the fire protection. And when you have certain cities, smaller cities that can't provide that, they go into a contract to try to provide that. For instance, let me just kind of read. I think this is important to read. It's important for, like, instance, like in Linden, Orem contracts with Linden, a smaller city, to provide the fire protection. And so this is where we believe that contract to the state code was really intended for. Agreements, or there's agreements between the interlocal agreements, and in those agreements, it talks about that, and we'll go to the next slide, sorry. Oh, sorry, go back, sorry. So in this, I've highlighted, like number 9, each party hereto waives all claims against other parties hereto for compensation for any loss, damage, or personal injury. And really the national standard is we go into these agreements because we know that most jurisdictions cannot provide the NFPA 1710 requirement. And what that states is in 1710, that you should have a minimum of 15 firefighters on the fire ground, and that's due to safety. And so that's something that even like us as Roy City, we can't provide those firefighters unless we have that mutual aid and automatic aid agreement. And so as this research, as I've gone through this, it works really well with the way we're doing it right now. And the data suggests that, yes, sometimes we potentially could run into other jurisdictions a few more times, but it equals out year to year. I think it balances itself out. As fire chiefs, we meet together often to look at this. In fact, we're looking at now, if you remember, about 2 months ago, Washington Terrace joined that interlocal agreement. And the reason why, as growth happens in cities and within fire departments, for instance, Washington Terrace now can help compensate for this response. Well, as you can see that we went into South Ogden. Likely, as cities grow, now potentially Washington Terrace will take away our response to South Ogden because that makes sense as far as a response. So as it grows, we as chiefs look at this to make sure that it equalizes. So really, what we're finding is we're not running more, that it equalizes. These agreements are in place really to help each other out because none of us can provide the right fire protection that's needed and necessary really for the citizens. And another aspect is we do consider the best interest of Roy City residents. And that's why we won't send another fire truck. We'll send one on the agreement. But if, for instance, we have an engine out on another call, say a medical, and this responds to a fire, we don't have to necessarily respond if we feel our battalion chief say that empties our city, we won't have fire protection. So those are some of the things that we consider. We give the latitude to our chiefs to say we can't respond if we can't provide the fire protection to our citizens. We'll always keep that, and then the number one priority is to keep the Roy City citizens safe.
I have a question on that. So is it
yeah.
divided up by area, or is it just if they call, you guys go?
This is stacking.
So a stacking is based on a geographical area, who goes. So for instance, when we get a call up here in the eastern side of Roy, that's where Ogden, South Ogden, Riverdale. So it's a geographical area that us as chiefs meet, and we decide who should come to that fire based upon the quickest response time.
So they call on whoever is closest.
Correct.
Like if it's Washington Terrace, it would be more of Ogden and then us.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we meet as chiefs to always look at that. And so that's the confidence I want to build, that this is something that we're continually looking at. If we need to make adjustments, we do that. Just like when we brought in Washington Terrace, we have that interlocal agreement. It's a 5-year agreement, and we can make changes. And that's why we brought in Washington Terrace, because they now can meet. Before they were a volunteer-based fire department. Now they're full-time, they can able to staff it. And so those are some of the changes that we make to the agreements.
And so when they call and if we can't respond and we don't go, it goes to the next, I'm assuming, city, and no feelings are hurt? Like there's no,
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, because they understand, all of us, I mean, it's getting busier and busier as we respond on medical calls and fires and all the different things that we're required to do. They understand that.
Okay.
So yeah, those are things we can consider, we give the latitude, and they understand that. So the mutual aid is typically a request, but we can on an automatic, that's built into dispatch, where mutual aid is not. So that just automatically dispatches our truck. If our battalion just says, hey, we've got 2 engines out of the city, we can't respond, then they'll go to someone else who can respond. So.
Okay.
Is there any other questions?
Comments, council?
Well, I was just thinking how West Haven, Plain City, Hooper, how they are growing so fast. So it's probably going to put more and more on our fire department and police department. Who covers, is that a Weber County that covers them first?
Well, yeah. So that's their area. So we'd be second in. So say, for instance, Hooper, it's all based up. We're going to respond. We're just going to get there depending on the location of that call in Hooper. It's potential we could get there quicker, just like Clinton in certain areas of our area could get there sooner than we can. And really, if we, as fire chiefs and councilmen, and really our job is to get there some of the quickest, because time is of the essence of firefighting. With the changes in the materials that's used, that should be our number one priority, is get firefighters there as quickly as we can. So.
Yeah, there's been 2 fires in my neighborhood, and Clinton was the first one on scene.
Yeah.
Just because proximity to our stations.
Right. But I hope that answers the questions and the data, the research we did. But I thought, I'm really glad that the mayor brought it, because we did find some internal things that we can do better, the way we're reporting it. But I think, like I said, as we look at this as fire chiefs, we'll always try to make those adjustments within the stacking. And that's something that we're looking at now with the growth that's happening. And as Weber Fire's growing out there, but we're still going to respond in and help them out just like they respond in and help us out. That's really important.
So with Hooper and West Haven growing, are they beefing up Weber Fire?
They are. Yeah, and this is maybe a talk for another time, but they are potentially looking at building 2 stations, in Hooper, one in Hooper and then one in West Haven. So, yep. Which will help us out. I mean, really, they're going to come in just like on those agreements. It's going to be beneficial to our residents, and just like we give back to them. So.
Okay, any other comments?
Thank you for the research.
Yeah.
Great job. Thanks, Chief. Okay. You definitely opened my eyes to the information, and that was very, very helpful for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great work. Okay. We do have some action items, and specifically, we got 3 council members. So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Brittany. We're going to do an oath of office, and she will do the swearing in. I would, if you don't mind, council members, please do it down here, obviously. But before the swearing in, would you just recognize who you may have here from your family or friends who's joining you? Would you mind making the announcement before Brittany starts the process? So for the 3 of you, would you mind just stepping down here? And then Brittany will go ahead and lead you in the ceremony.
Okay.
You're first, Ann. I think so.
Is it all or one at a time?
You can all go down if you'd like. But I do want you to make sure if you got family or friends here, just recognize who in the audience is here as a family or friend for you.
I have my son and my daughter-in-law and 2 of my grandchildren, and then my other daughter and my other granddaughter, and the other 2 of my children are able to make it. So, and I do have some friends that are over here too.
Okay, perfect.
I,
Congratulations, Ann. Well done. Joe, who do you have here tonight?
Got my oldest son, Trayden, here. Three of my children weren't able to make it because they had other things going on. Obviously, I have my wife here.
I, Joe Paul,
I, Joe Paul,
having been elected or appointed to
having been elected or appointed to
the office of City Council,
the office of City Council,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations, Joe. Thank you. Brian, point out who you have here to join us with us tonight.
Well, you all met Bob already. But outside of Bob, got my wife, my son, Dallas, my son, Chase, and AKA campaign manager. I've got friends. I've got
Your brother.
Julia. I've got my brother Brent. I've got my neighbors, Dennis and Claire. I've got Morgan, who just tried to sneak in, and her little girl. And I've got friends galore, and I'm just glad to be standing here. Thanks.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I,
Brian Saxton,
Brian Saxton,
having been elected
having been elected
or appointed to
or appointed to
the office of City Council,
the office of City Council,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey,
obey,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Utah,
Utah,
and that I will discharge
and I will discharge
the duties
the duties
of my office
of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Brian, congratulations and welcome back. It's now official. Welcome.
Thanks, man.
Okay, Brittany, thank you for doing that. Okay, we now have a public hearing specifically deals with amendment of the fiscal year 2024 budget. We'll have Amber go ahead and introduce that, then I'll have a motion to open to a public hearing.
Okay.
Amber?
Mayor and council, last council meeting, we discussed funds needed to complete the complex renovation project. I now present to you Resolution 24-1 for your consideration to amend the fiscal year 2024 budget. At the beginning of this fiscal year, we kept revenues and expenditures for the complex the same as previous years, with the idea that we would adjust them when we got closer to a known opening date. Staff has reviewed revenues and expenditures for the remainder of the year and recommend the changes you received in your packets. We are decreasing revenues earned by the complex by $200,000 and decreasing operating expenditures by $366,000. We have also received $22,000 in donations since the end of last fiscal year, and we will apply the ramp per capita grant to the complex for an additional $21,000. We will add $1.1 million to the renovation project expenditures, and this will all have a net effect of $900,000 coming from fund balance to complete the project. The proposed resolution will increase the previously approved general fund budget by $743,900. We recommend that you receive public input and then consider approval of Resolution 24-1.
Perfect. Thank you, Amber. Okay, with that then, Council, then I'd like to open up a public hearing. Do I have a motion to go into a public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Brian, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we are now in a public hearing. If you'd like to share a thought on this topic, please come to the mic, give us your name and address. Thanks, Diane.
Diane Wilson, 4302 South, 2675 West, Roy. I am excited that we've got the complex coming to the end of the race here. So thanks, everyone, for your work. Thanks for getting this all arranged, and glad we got it going. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, anybody else like to make public comment? Oh, it's great.
David Young, 4870 South, 2575 West. My wife will be overjoyed when it's done. She would have been here to speak, but she's doing yoga at the library tonight. So it will be appreciated when they do a grand opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Anybody else like to make a comment?
Michael Gann, 2174 West, 5650 South, Roy.
Okay, Mike.
I'm elated. As soon as you get the sauna open, I'll quit getting questions. Hopefully you're going to have a sauna.
No.
Because my wife and half the neighborhood wants to know what we're having. But I'm glad we worked it out so that it could be done. And hope it gets done so I can quit walking outside. It's just too cold. So I appreciate the work that's been done by the workers and the city council, and I think it'll be a help to our community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else like to make comment? Okay, thank you for the input. Okay, do I have a motion then to go out of public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, Sophie, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. We are now out of a public hearing. Council comments?
I will make a comment. I met today with Blakely and Ellie of Waste Management. Pled the case of the complex. He supports the city. He actually idolizes Roy. He uses Roy as an ideal example when he talks to other cities. And he asked what he could do to help. And I said, well, we have a complex that we're about ready to make a big budget adjustment on. And so he wouldn't give me a dollar amount. I have a pretty good idea how much he's going to donate, but he's headed to Africa for 3 weeks. He's getting married, and he's going to do it in Africa. And he said when he gets back, he will let me know how much it is, but it's multiple thousands of dollars.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Joe. Anybody else like to make comment? Ann?
I just have talked to a lot of people about this, and I'm so excited that we're going to get this done. And a former superintendent of a school district, who's my good friend, said, Ann, I've dealt with budgets and completions of a lot of projects in my life, and let me tell you this right now, when it's all said and done and people walk through the door and enjoy it, they're not going to care about how much money it costs. They're just going to care that it's done, and they're going to enjoy it. And so I'm very excited that we're going to get this done, because I can't tell you how many kids at school and how many neighbors and how many people keep asking me, when's it going to be done? And so I'm very excited to get this done, and it's going to be first class and beautiful, and then we'll take really good care of it when it's done.
Great comment. Thank you, Ann. Anybody else like to make a comment? Okay. Council, hearing none then, do I have a consideration of resolution 24-1? So this is the first resolution of the year, a resolution that amends the fiscal year 24 budget. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Sophie, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, I got a little worried there. I only asked twice. Thank you, Randy. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 24-1 is approved. Thank you, Amber. Okay, leading us through that process. Thank you, council. Okay, we do have an approval of the council member committee and the liaison assignments. Council, I sent that to you. I wanted to kind of talk, and I didn't respond to your text. I thank you for making comments. One of the responsibilities, I wanted to do this at a public meeting, one of the responsibilities of mayor is that I'm responsible to assign then committees and liaison assignments. And I try to send out, in fact, I do send out and I send to each one of you what your input is, what you would like to be considered. And then I have to look at a lot of different factors to make a determination what I think is probably the best. How do we balance it? How do we basically put the right people in the right positions, try to get you as close to your desires as you possibly can? There are two fundamental pieces to this I need to talk to you about. One is obviously the committee and liaison assignment, and the other one deals with the mayor pro tem, and I have to handle these things completely different. So I think I got as close as I possibly can. I didn't give everybody everything they wanted and would like to have, but I think I provided what appears to be a fair distribution of what was asked and what I was able to provide so that each of you have some responsibilities. I do encourage you, if you will, when you go through this process, particularly on liaison assignments, that you change that up. Certainly, I will say chiefs, council like to be assigned to you, maybe because they get rides and they get more involvement. I think that's probably some of the excitement parts. But by the same token is, the other departments, there's lots of things happening, okay? That's also important in understanding. So I ask that you basically do that. We have now got a list in front of you. I'll be asking here in a second to approve a review and consent based on what's sitting in front of you. And then when I'm done with that, I then need to start the process in terms of defining who's going to be the mayor pro tem going into 2024. So with that, is there any comments relative to the committee and liaison assignments?
Make a motion they're accepted as written.
Okay, I have a motion then to approve, okay, the assignments as written. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, then those assignments are done. I've been advised many times, I've talked to Matt about this many times, about the mayor pro tem. Interesting, it's very clear, the mayor has no involvement in the selection of the mayor pro tem. That's strictly between the city council. We do have two candidates who've shown an interest to be a mayor pro tem for the 2024 year. And with that, I'm just going to introduce it, and then I'm going to ask then Brittany if she would go ahead and read a name, and I need a public vote on who you would like to be the mayor pro tem going into 2024. Councilmember Joe Paul has shown an interest, and Councilmember Brian Saxton has shown an interest, okay, to be the next mayor pro tem. So with that, Brittany, if you'll go ahead, I'll ask you to choose, just choose one or the other, council, and provide that information, okay, to Brittany as she calls out your name.
Councilmember Saxton,
I vote for me.
I would hope so.
I'm Saxton.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Joe Paul.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Joe Paul.
Councilmember Scadden,
Joe Paul.
Councilmember Jackson,
Joe Paul.
Okay, then Joe, you'll be the next 2024 mayor pro tem, okay, based on the vote of the city council. Thank you. Now we're going to consider resolution 24-2. This is a resolution approving the authorization and execution of interlocal agreement between Roy City Corporation and Hooper City. Chief, I believe you're going to share this conversation with us, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Resolution 24-2 is the interlocal cooperation agreement for crossing guard services with Hooper City. The last agreement we entered into was actually back in 2016, so we're 7 years. The last rate, well, I should go back. We have 5 crossing guards that we provide to Hooper City, and those are for Hooper Elementary, Freedom Elementary, and Country View Elementary. In the last agreement, services were being billed at the rate of $5,740 per crossing guard. That rate per employee is now moving to $8,918. So the billable amount to Hooper is moving from $28,740 to $44,591. They approved a resolution earlier in December, and it's before this body tonight.
I know you, sorry.
Comments, go ahead.
I know you indicated which elementary they're at. Can you indicate where they'll be stationed? Do you know? Or is
Actually,
it-
so Captain Smith is responsible for all the crossing guards. I don't know specifically their locations.
Okay. Do you know where they're at, Captain Smith? I'm just curious, because I've had people ask.
There are 3 guards down at Hooper Elementary. There's 2 at the 4-way stop. I believe it's at 55. And right there in the corner anyway.
43 and
43.
Probably,
Okay.
yeah. Then you go south a half block of Hooper Elementary, and there's another one there. The next one is at Freedom Elementary. And that one crosses directly into the school. Then actually there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the last one is over at, crosses Hooper Kids into West Haven for Country View Elementary.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And they're down there about 47, I believe, and 48.
I appreciate that. There was just some people asking where they were at, and I knew the elementaries, but I didn't know where. So thank you. I appreciate that information.
Are these additional or are they on top of, like we've hired more?
No, we've not hired any additional. We've had these
Okay.
5 at least since the last agreement.
So it's just the same?
It's
just
these
the
same
same.
5, yeah. We manage these 5 specifically for Hooper City.
Yeah, and there's a step up in our reimbursement rate.
Correct. Yeah, labor costs have gone up, so we went to Hooper
Right.
City, said the costs are going up, so your costs are going up.
So Hooper reimburses us for all these.
Correct.
So,
Mhm.
well, I think that's a good thing to give them a raise because I think it's hard to find people that, I mean, that's a weird schedule. You know, you go in the morning, then you go do something in the day, and then you go back in the afternoon. And a lot of them taking their lives into their own hands with the way people drive. And I know you've had a hard time sometimes getting people to do this. So I think paying them more money will make maybe more popular for people to apply for that job. So
We have found it's been easier to, we still have turnover, but we haven't seen it this year like we have in previous years.
yeah.
That's great. Any other comments or questions for Chief?
No, I appreciate the work.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 24-2?
So moved.
Randy, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joe. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
I,
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Okay, this motion carries. Resolution 24-2 is approved. Thank you. And thanks, Chief. Consideration of ordinance 24-1. This is adopting an ordinance regulating camping activities and amending the Roy City Code 5-42 park curfew. I believe Officer, oh, there he is. Okay, Officer Mark, you're going to kind of introduce this and talk to us about this. Thanks.
Mayor and council members, my name is Mark Krieger. I'm a police officer with Roy City. And as such, I'm going to go over these. There's actually 2 different proposals. One is specific to the parks. The other one is to camping. And before I jump into it, I'll give you a little background on how we kind of got to this. As we all know, Roy City is very blessed to have the number of parks we do have. Makes it unique. It's a pivotal part of the community. And as such, I can tell you the police department takes the enforcement and patrolling of those parks quite seriously. And a little while ago, we saw an uptick in vandalism, some damaged property, graffiti, the things that go on. And Chief Gwenner reached out to the officers and asked that we spend more time at the parks and try to curb this destructive behavior that's going on. And it was during that time I started looking at our city code and comparing that with cities surrounding, and found that we way behind. We have not updated in a while. There weren't a lot of rules or anything that were even enforceable per our city policy. So I took this to the captain and to Chief Gwen. Looked at it, they agreed with it, they were supportive of it, and encouraged me to put something together. So worked with Park and Recs as well. Mr. Matt Wilson came up with this proposal. And I believe there is a PowerPoint of it too. We'll follow along. You guys have it, so I'm not going to go over everything in exact details. I'll just try to hit some of the maybe key points of it, and then happy to answer any questions you have. So as up there, the only code that I could find regarding parks whatsoever was this code right here. And basically it's 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. Park is closed. And there was nothing else, no other rules, boundaries, anything like that. So what we had put together here will give us a statement of purpose, define the parks as well. We have a lot of different places, such as the dog parks, ponds, splash pads, but all that is going to be now in the definition under the parks, so there's no question about it. Statement of purpose, we can move past this. Again, you guys have that. This is what we just talked about with definitions. This is going to include everything on the grounds that's considered a park. Not only that, but as well as the parking lots adjacent or next to it. Park hours was one that we came up with a change for. Instead of the 11 o'clock, this proposal has it from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. And how I came up with that was that is consistent with surrounding ordinances, pretty much all the cities around us. But not only that, I did go and I went and talked with people living in the neighborhood of the parks, and specifically it was by the pickleball courts. It's a great sport, but it is extremely loud. 10:45 at night, hearing the pinging going back and forth, it was kind of an overwhelming response to everyone I spoke to said it's too late. So we think 10 o'clock is appropriate, and again, that's just online with pretty much everywhere else, city around us. Another thing that we were missing, we had no enforcement on at all, was anything to do with parking, vehicle use, or just the lots in general. I tell you from an enforcement standpoint, a lot of keeping order is just being familiar with the areas, knowing when something's not right or out of place. And that is impossible to do when you have different vehicles every night parked in the parking lots. There were times that some of the parks would have construction companies using those for overnight parking. And again, it's extremely difficult to try to get any kind of baseline on what is normal, what not, what can we enforce, when should we kind of act, and whatnot. So this just eliminates the overnight parking. Again, park rules, a lot of this was done in collaboration with Park and Recs. Michelle is here. Consistent with every single city around us. Nothing in this ordinance is extreme. It's pretty much the baseline to get us on track and just up to date with everyone else. We can go through these. And again, this is, not to take place of any state laws. Obviously, federal laws, regulations, those will still be enforced by the police department, but this gives some more grounds and avenues for us to make sure that they can be enjoyed by everyone. A couple of additions too, we'll go through this one here, is, let me just read to you. Roy City reserves the right to have any person removed and or trespass from a park for violation of a city ordinance. Upon observing or becoming aware of the violation, a Roy City police officer shall have the authority to have the offenders removed from the park for the remainder of the day. For a trespass, anything to exceed that, if we're going for a length of time, if it was that serious of an incident, then that authority shall be awarded to the city manager or their designee. Again, something that comes to mind when I look at this is Roy Days. There's issues, and they seem to be caused by a select few that are not following or don't want to follow the rules. They're just there to kind of create havoc and make sure everyone else can have a good time. We need to have something in the ordinance where we can address those issues specifically, identify the problem, and have their pretty much move for the day to make sure we don't have any more problems. Again, that's all this saying. As police officers, we don't want any more. We don't want that on our shoulders to determine how long someone's not allowed at the park, right? That's above our level. That needs to come from higher. But if it's a violation that we observed or someone makes aware to us, we need to have some kind of enforcement that we can make sure it doesn't happen again. It's not going to continue to happen throughout the day, which right now we don't have. And that's simply what this says. We don't have much on park signs, but as I drove around all the parks, we have different signs. And locations were kind of scattered throughout. And what this proposes is we get consistent. There's no reason to have different signs. Every park should be identical. Same signs. We have to make sure that they're at locations of people coming and going, where they're highly visible, where there's no question. And also on those signs, we need to give a reference to where people themselves can go and view these rules and regulations. As they're going to be held accountable for them, we're going to make sure we give them the information where they can go look at them and understand and know what they are. So that is it for the parks. The second one is the camping. Excuse me. And again, just like before, this camping ordinance is, I believe every city surrounding us has the same one. We'll go through there. We have a definition of it, and what it is we can't just allow anyone to pull up a sleeping bag and decide to camp out in front of a store. It's just something we can't allow, and we are seeing that. Obviously not to the extent of maybe like Ogden and whatnot, but as they are enforcing these ordinances that they have, we're seeing more of that behavior coming our way. Right. And as it states right now, or as we stand right now, there isn't too much we can do, if anything, really. And people are calling us to do something about it. We're stuck going, well, we can't. So this is something I think that definitely needs to be put into place so that we can address it and have other avenues of dealing with it, making sure it doesn't continue or happen. And I know there were some questions about them, so be happy to answer any of those now.
Well, Officer Craig, thank you. I will indicate to you, I'm excited. We went down this path 3 years ago. Councilmember Burrell at the time suggested the conversation be tabled. It was. We were certainly thinking we need to bring this conversation back. To your point, certainly municipalities a little larger than Roy are seeing some homelessness challenges where there is a lot of camping taking place. We just have to get our arms around it and understand it. To be honest with you, we're getting reports, I certainly getting reports that we're seeing now that the rail trail or the rail line is being pulled up, we're seeing some migration coming out of the lower part of Ogden, moving up the rail trail into Roy and the surrounding cities. So these are the realities that we face, and I think having a solid ordinance going forward is exactly what we need to be able to work that. I did send Matt a couple of questions I wanted to talk to you about and kind of get your opinion and thoughts on as we get the council ready for that. So if you got a second, maybe we can talk
Absolutely.
to a couple of things within your proposed ordinance. Let me just cover a couple of things I mentioned. One of the things it says in 5244 parking and vehicle use restrictions, this would be use of the parks. And so, Michelle, you definitely need to give us your perspective on this as well. Here's what the policy says. It shall be unlawful to drive any motorized vehicle or allow any motorized vehicle to process on over any garden, lawn, sidewalk, and I underline sidewalk, or any other portion of the city park which is not specifically designated for the use of a motorized vehicle except, and then you definitize the exceptions. My question to you, and I think it's a question, and I can't help to think, Officer Grugan, this is going to be a conversation even the state is going to have to take up as we now have been introducing more electric bikes, okay, into our society. Here's my question. The policy doesn't clarify what constitutes a motorized vehicle. Therefore, one can only assume electric bicycles are considered motorized and are not allowed under this proposed ordinance. Since these electric bikes are often have both an electric as well as a manual pedaling capability, can an electric bike not operating under electric power be allowed on sidewalks within the city parks? And I think we just need to have clarification how we see that. And Matt, if you have a legal perspective, let me hear some things so we can kind of figure out whether we got an area here we got to talk more about.
So I would say that would include an electric bicycle being operated as the electric bicycle using that motor on it. But part of this also gives the discretion. I mean, police officers have discretion, and we'd also have any of our parks employees have that discretion. If someone's pedaling and it is an electric bike, I don't think that's something that would cause or merit them to be trespassed.
Well, and there's a difference in speed too. They're using an electric motor that can go up to 30 miles an hour versus your average pedaler is probably 15. So you're doubling, which creates a bigger safety hazard.
And I think that's the main goal here is safety on sidewalks. And obviously we want to be able to maintain the lawns, gardens, and keep those up to the standards that the Parks Department has.
Oh, yeah, running them across a garden or through some type of lawn, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. But I will tell you, to this point, Elmer Russell Park is very active. I see a lot of bikes down there on occasion. I suspect we'd see the same thing in other ones where they have a kind of a trail that runs through there. We are certainly going to put a trail that's going to run all the way from the freeway all the way down to 3500 on the south side. That will be a 10-foot wide trail line that's going to run through there. I anticipate there will be a lot of electric bikes involved with this. I just want to make sure that we understand if discretion is the way we approach it, that the officers have that discretion understanding. Certainly, Michelle, your team has that discretion that says if they're pedaling an electric bike, if they're on an electric bike, that will be okay, or do we restrict that? And the definition, to be honest with you, kind of leads to the fact if it's motorized, doesn't make a distinction between electric or gas. If it's motorized, it's not supposed to be on that sidewalk. Thoughts?
And the council could, if you wanted, exclude electric bicycles as well from this policy.
Well, I just want to bring it up so we make sure, because I don't want to put, and Officer Greger, your point's well taken here. There's not a lot of ordinance out there that gives you governance on what you can and cannot do, and some of that stuff you just have to kind of watch it unfold and take the complaints. I think what you've provided here is some real meat, okay, to allow us to be able to use a good tool so that we provide a safe environment for all, and more importantly, a position by which you can enforce and help us manage it. Because I'll tell you what, I struggle so much, okay? Every time I get notification that our restrooms have been terrorized, okay, we see damage out there, we've got to find a solution. And I think what you've offered here is a real solution to help us in this cause. So, council,
I just feel electric bike, like driving around Emma Russell Park, is pretty even kill, but driving up 5600, I know I'd have it on electric mode till I got, And I just think, people that are on electric bikes, I mean, my kids have some. Yeah. When you're going up a hill, you put it on electric unless you're in really good shape. And then you just would coast along and pedal through a bike, through a trail. And I just think that it's up to your discretion. I can't see somebody in an electric bike go driving through flower gardens or anything like that unless they're totally out of control.
Do we have issues with electric bikes on the DNRG trail right now?
None that I've heard of.
I know, as I say, I know Dennis is a big electric bike fan. We've had this conversation.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
Right.
one other concern before you say that. Electric bikes, you're also starting to see these electric motorcycles that
Yeah,
people
that
are
are-
treating them like bicycles.
Yes.
But those things will get up to like 40 miles an
40,
hour.
50
So I
miles an
think
hour,
you
yeah.
got to be careful, and
Yep.
I think you've got to use discretion. I don't know that you can write the ordinance to include everything.
Right. I just think you need to use your discretion. What do you think, Michelle?
Well, I just looked up like what the state says for an e-bike, and the state basically defines it as the same as a pedal bike and says that an individual may operate an electric assisted bike on any path or trail designated for use of a bicycle. So, I would say that the officers and everybody would just default to
describe.
Right.
State, yeah,
discretion.
state's discretion.
Now, if they're going over our flowers and stuff, then
Uh-huh.
we have more stuff we can.
Right.
But if
All right.
If it's a
And-
path that's designated for a bicycle, right now the state says there's no.
And most adults are the e-bike riders. Not very many kids have those. 'Cause they're
It's getting a lot more popular for the younger crowd too.
But they are more of expensive bike, and mostly older people have them. But I think if you see some kid that goes through a flower bed or whatever, then take care of that problem at that time. But
Well, and I agree. Yeah, because when we witness those kind of things, that becomes pretty evident. But I will tell you, may not be as easy when in fact you're on Emma Russell. Joe, I've seen you on Emma Russell. You're walking Emma Russell, somebody's riding a bike on Emma Russell, and it just happens to be an electric bike. And as long as we agree as a council that we can leave it up with staff and our officers to have some discretion to be able to say, hey, that, it's not an issue, I'm okay with that, if you're okay with that.
That would be my.
yeah, take each case, as it comes along. And if anybody, I mean, we can always change it if it becomes a problem. But as of now, I think e-bikes should be allowed in parks and on trails and,
I like what it defaults to the state.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Officer Krieger, you okay with this dialogue? You okay with this?
Absolutely am. And also to that point too, K under the rules, skateboards, skates and scooters, here says that bicycles and similar devices must remain on park sidewalks, paved trails, or areas specifically designated for such use. So that's almost in contradiction to so maybe we do need to add a little something to clarify that. Because if we're having these questions and discussions, I'm sure someone who has their bike wondering, where can I ride it, is going to have the same exact questions. And I don't think it'd be a hard fix. Another thing that came to mind for me too was maybe we just say speed, if it's a motorized bike under 5 miles an hour, whatever it is. But, I also agree, Mr. Paul, some of these are getting up to where they're going so fast that they're flying by you. And I know I jumped on one of the Lime scooters and fell because it took off so fast. I mean, I think if we can just kind of set a guideline or a base of reasonableness, we don't want you going 50 miles an hour on a bike path just because it can.
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
and that's way over the top. I agree with you.
I'd like to say I appreciate Officer Krieger's work. I was introduced to him by the new mayor of Ogden City. I met Ben Nadolski, and Ben, we exchanged some information. Officer Krieger reached out to me. We went out one night and spent an evening driving around through every park and everything, and we talked about all this, and it actually made a lot of sense because he brought into the fact that, hey, even though it says something on this sign, there's nothing that we can use to enforce it.
No
So there's-
enforceability, yeah.
And so I appreciate the work. I like it when employees, police officers get involved and look at ways to improve the city. So thank you for your efforts. And if there's something that we need to tidy up in that language, Matt, let us know.
Well, so I guess my question to that is, we can certainly take an action from here as we go through the approval process, officer, to approve it with a modification or a change. And if we believe collectively that there needs to be at least understanding of e-bikes, okay, that maybe helps to clarify that, now's the time to put that in there because it will come up. And again, if we think there's a good argument, now's to say, hey, we like everything about that portion, but there's at least maybe has to have some awareness to the issue about e-bikes. Comment.
If I may, Mayor, I'm going to suggest we kind of leave the language as is for a couple reasons. One, I do believe and agree that we should probably leave the discretion up to the officers. If someone is acting irresponsibly, then the officer can respond and deal with the problem. Quite honestly, we don't know how big the problem is because we're not collecting any data. We're not collecting any data because we have nothing that we can use for enforcement action. So what I would suggest, we maybe get this approved tonight as the language is, and then over time, we can actually collect some of that data, and if it turns out there is a problem, we can actually address that problem specifically with any amendments that may be needed later on.
I think it's a reasonable
I
request.
like that approach.
I
Okay.
agree.
Based on that, I make a
Whoa,
mo-
Not there yet.
Come on.
Let me ask the question about smoking. It says specifically smoking is illegal. Heather, Michelle, let me ask you, do we have no smoking signs in our grounds all around the parks?
Yes, there are no smoking signs out throughout the parks, and this no smoking is actually a health department.
Clean Air Act, yeah.
That's already out there, but we wanted to list it in our park rules as well.
Okay, so.
Does that
sorry,
include
go ahead.
vaping?
No, I don't disagree. What I'm concerned is that how do you enforce that?
Well, and that's, I can speak to that a little bit. The no smoking signs up now that are in place from the health department. I've been a cop for going on 11 years. I have no idea how to cite somebody for that, how to enforce that, how to do anything with it. It basically, and I can guarantee you no officer does. Yeah, it's a completely separate branch, and it just says it, again, we're left at that, please put that out, you can't smoke here. And if someone says,
But
I
if you
want
put
to,
it into an ordinance, then that gives you the ability to take action.
we're
on it.
enforceable, yeah, right here, we can actually do something with it. Smoking signs as it is are not enforced.
My
But don't you think most people that are like at a ball game or a ballpark that need to go have a smoke, usually walk out the parking lot or out in the outfield and go have a smoke and go back and finish watching the game?
It's all in the-
I've never seen anybody
all in the
light up a
park.
cigarette at many ballparks I've been at.
Not cigarettes, but I can't tell you how many times I've been clouded by vape.
I
Yeah,
know.
and so I think that is a good ordinance to have in there because then we can say, hey, there's an ordinance you can't do vaping here, and would you please leave? And if they give you crap, then we just need to call somebody.
I'm okay. I'm going to take the wisdom of the chief. Okay,
Discretion.
leave it as it is, but let's see how you basically measure that and monitor that and collect data on that. And let's see if there's a way you can basically enforce it, if there's a way to enforce that. But to your point, walking from a park event to the parking lot is still in the park.
Right.
And just says, I'm going to walk over here and have a smoke, or I'm going to go over here and vape. They're just walking 100 feet away from there. It's still illegal.
Yeah,
I don't know
but
where
it's
it would be
hard
not
to
illegal in Roy City. Therefore, my only comment, Matt, would be this. With this, and it's just something to think about, maybe the data will point to this. Will this facilitate the city have to provide designated smoking areas within our city parks?
No, because the way the health ordinance reads right now is any public park, it's prohibited to smoke.
Prohibited to have smoking, including the parking.
Mhm.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
guess I'll have to sit in their car. And you-
I guess. Well, I'm not sure they can do that either.
If
Well-
I can say too, there's also, discretion used on this.
I understand.
This is for someone that's in a crowded area sitting on the bench with people around that wants to be blowing smoke all over people. We're not out to get someone who's standing next to their car, and having a cigarette before they go into the game. That's really not the purpose of this.
Right.
The hard part about this, and to be honest with you, officer, this is the challenge. I've said ever since I've been elected, if we have an ordinance and we have a law of the land that we enforce, we make no discretion, no distinction, nobody gets a different way out. It's just enforced. But too often we pass ordinances that are unenforceable. And we put you and we put code enforcement officers and we put staff in a tough spot because we may ignore this one, but basically do something on this one. And that's so hard to do. It really needs to be consistent, needs to be fair, needs to be equitable. And sometimes it's hard to do. And I've never been a supporter of an ordinance that is unenforceable. But to the chief's point, let's let the data drive an answer. If the right answer is there might be some ways by which this could be enforced, then I say leave it in. And let's see. And if we don't get a lot of complaints and don't get a lot of pushback and we don't have to get forced into having to put a smoking designated area in our parks, then I say it worked and we'll go from that. I've just got one more, Joe, before you go for a motion.
I think Randy's got one
I got
too.
one more too.
Okay. The other one I had was, and I think it's an interesting one, and I just asked the question relative to this. In 2023, state legislators passed a law, Chief, you may be aware of this one, that deals with Code Blue alerts. Under the Code Blue alerts, the county is given responsibility then for homeless people to give a responsibility to find places, public places to put people in shelter if necessary, to stay overnight if the temperature drops below 15 degrees. I think that's the Code Blue alert sign. And when I talked to the county who was given the assignment, all counties have that assignment, they've indicated all public space. Obviously, where the congregation of homelessness will occur will be the easiest, but they got to get the people off the street. As you may be aware, we lost, I think, 5 people. They just froze to death in Salt Lake last year. And it really caused the legislators to say, hey, we got to do something. So here's the reason for my comment. It states in the camping portion, okay, it says this. In the camping portion, which is section 9 of the camping, it says, proposed ordinance states, it is unlawful for any person to camp, lodge, sleep, cook, make fire, pitch a tent, fly, lean to, tarpaulin, umbrella, or any other type of ground cover or shelter. And then it says this, it says, or place sleeping bags, bedding, or any other type of camping or sleeping equipment upon any portion of the public way. And the proposed ordinance says a public way is defined as being any public-owned building or public-owned real property. And so essence is if it's public-owned property anywhere or a public-owned building, you can't put any type of sleeping, bedding, or whatever. And so my question was simply this, and I'd just like to get your thoughts. It might be fine as it is, and we'll deal with it later, but it's certainly that. Here's what I said in my question. In 2023, state legislators passed a law effective in 2023 called the Code Blue alerts. They may have had different names, but that was an easy one for me to pull out. The alerts are issued by county when the temperature of the specific area is expected to drop below 15 degrees for 2 hours or more during a 24-hour period. Under the law, public facilities within the county, to include Roy City's facilities. I asked that question. They said, yes, if necessary, we'll breach that out to all cities if there's a need to get people undercover. Then I asked this question, and it's specifically targeted for homeless people. I asked this question. Should there be a statement in the proposed ordinance that talks to adjustments in this policy based on state law public needs? Meaning is if the state passes a law like Code Blue that says you have to open these public spaces, the complex, the schools, they're all public spaces, to protect those from being frozen, okay, should this ordinance just make reference to that? And that was really just my comment, and nothing more than that. Comment, Matt?
Mayor, if I may address that, so it also limits our enforcement of certain zoning regulations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it's something we need to add into this ordinance. It becomes unenforceable for that time that we're under a Code Blue alert. And it applies to not just camping, but a number of other ordinances
A lot of
as
issues,
well.
yeah. So your recommendation would be is we're probably okay because if it happens, we're going to be forced to do it anyway.
Correct.
Irregardless of what our ordinance, because it's a state law.
Correct.
So as a policeman and you found somebody in a park, with sleeping bag and everything freezing, is your response to take them to a shelter? Is that what you usually do? Put them in your car and take them
Help them out, try to find something.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't, obviously force them to a shelter, and a lot of individuals simply don't want to go to the shelter. But if you're asking if we came across somebody in freezing conditions, we're going to do what we can to help them, make sure they don't freeze to death.
Right.
I mean, our priority is not a citation or anything like that anyways. We would do what we can to help.
Yeah. Okay, great comment. Randy, you had a comment.
Yeah, no, just as it kind of relates to the overnight parking aspect, what are we defining as a vehicle? Is that motorized? Because I'm going like Emma Russell, because during soccer season, you have the trailer that's parked there the entire season.
We have motor vehicle defined in our code. so-
Okay.
And that applies to every section of our ordinances.
Okay, so let me,
Do trailers.
yep, let me play a scenario,
It
right?
includes trailers.
It
yes.
does include trailers.
Correct.
But are we leveraging our power of discretion for the soccer?
There's exceptions, so they can also apply for an exception, and it's not actually the city manager, it would be the Parks and Recreation Director that has that authority. They would have to approve that with Michelle prior to parking overnight.
Okay.
So like if there's we hold a softball tournament, usually they're 2-3 days. And most people that I know that have trailers take them to these parks and park them and stay in them. So they would have to get a special permit to do that, because I'm sure and all the people I know just do it.
Correct.
So
Well,
It could be permitted as part of, they're
part of
coming
the
to you to
special
say, hey,
event.
can we use this park for this tournament? Then that's where they're permitted to, yes, you can have camping on site or something like that.
Well, I think I read it basically says, the proposal ordinance says that, Michelle, you would be the one responsible to approve those, or your designated individual. And so I think, counsel, to your point, if there are permitted circumstances where an individual in fact needs to leave a trailer, hopefully not camping necessarily, but leaves a trailer, she has the authority to go ahead and allow that to take place, and then just simply notify the chief that it's occurred.
Hopefully one day we'll have a hotel and won't have to worry about it.
We're working on that.
well, I had another question about the parking in the parks, because I know like Roy West Park, I know the people that live across the street, a lot of people just park all their extra cars there every day. And, or their trailers that they use for their work and stuff.
That's now
And-
illegal. That was also my concern. What is to stop like a general contractor from taking, again, if we're not defining a trailer as part of the parking ordinance? But we are. That's what I'm hearing. But now, with this, we are. Right now, we're not.
Right.
So they have that ability to do that now, but they will not have that ability going forward.
Based on the proposed ordinance as written.
Correct.
I like it.
So you just be like Ogden City, get a chalk and go mark their tire, and then if it's there the next day, then you know they stayed overnight.
No, but based on the curfew, they have to have the vehicle removed by 10 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I like the new curfew, and so that'll probably take
it
a
too.
while for all the kids to figure that out, but
Okay. Other comments or questions, council?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve ordinance 24-1, an ordinance of Roy City adopting an ordinance regulating camping activities and amending Roy City Code 5-2-4, park curfew, establishing rules for Roy City parks and trails, and by providing that this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon posting after this final passage. That's probably the last one I'll read.
This is the last one we read. Joe, thank you. That's good. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ann. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Ordinance 24-1 is approved. Thank you. I appreciate all the hard work on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's
Awesome.
going to be nice to have guidelines.
Let me just share this thought. And Chief, thank you for creating an environment where this can happen, because this is really important as leadership. When the people who are most in contact to these kinds of issues are willing to go up and says, hey, our ordinances are lacking, and willing to do the work that you have done to help us to define this a little clearer, to make it a little bit better. Okay, so it makes it easier for our city and makes our center better. I'm telling you, you've gone over the top. I never expected that, to be very honest with you. But I admire it, because we can't create the kind of change the city needs to create unless people are willing to do something. And certainly, officer, you have done something here. And we couldn't be more pleased. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
This
you.
has been 3 years in the making, okay? And tonight, I could not be more excited. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well done.
Good job.
Okay. Discussion item, we do have one discussion item. Matt, I think you're going to lead the conversation here.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to put this on the agenda just to be transparent about it. The mayor did receive an email and a letter from Weber Human Services to terminate the interlocal agreement that they have with Royce City with the senior center over at the Hope Center. As many of you know, the senior center is operated by Weber Human Services, and Royce City's contribution to the senior center is that we maintain the building. So we bought the building, we constructed the building, and we're over the ongoing maintenance and everything like that. With this termination, there's a lot of unanswered questions. One of the things that the Weber Human Services did indicate that they do want to have a committee with 2 people from each municipality to join together and talk about the future of the senior centers. They want to just reorganize it. So I anticipate future interlocal agreements with that agency. But we don't have any of the answers right now because that committee hasn't been formed. The mayor was responsible for sending an email last week to just indicate that a couple of people if we wanted to be on that committee, and I believe he has done so. So I really just wanted to put it toward the council. This is not anything that we as Royce City initiated. This is something that they initiated. A lot of unanswered questions that we will keep you informed when we find out the answers to it.
Yeah, great comments, Matt. Any comments on this, council?
So basically, their plan is to not fund the mills and they wanted the city to be turned over to have to take care of all this?
So Weber Human Services, I believe, will still want to provide some of those mills. I think one of the issues that Weber Human Services was having is that there's multiple senior centers throughout the county, and they're not all treated fairly or equally, I guess. So like, for instance, Riverdale City has a senior center, and Weber Human Services has nothing to do with it. Or Ogden City has a senior center, and they employ some of the employees. And so they want to come, I think they might be underfunded, I don't know, but they receive grants to fund these senior centers. And I think that's what their hopes is to have some future relationship with Royce City. But to know what that relationship is, we just don't have that information.
So they'll continue to fund the mills for now, but there's no guarantee how long that's going to last for.
Well, the letter
what's their
said till
budget cycle?
July.
Are they state?
They would be a calendar of the physical budget cycle as a district.
Well, I just didn't.
Calendar
Or physical?
Physical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I read the letter, it basically made it sound like they were going to, take care of us until July, and then we're kind of, I don't know, we'll do a committee and figure out what we're going to do after. But I just feel like that guy that wrote that letter needs to come here and tell us what he's planning on doing, because our senior center in Roy is one of the ones that's the most attended to out of all the ones in this county, except for maybe Ogden City. And Kathy Prividel gets donations from Winco, America First to help, fill her pantry. And she does such a great job. And it's just something that those seniors depend on from morning when they go have coffee and BS with their buddies, and then everything that she does. And I just don't think they can come in and then just all of a sudden say, yeah, maybe it's not something we want to be in charge of anymore, without giving us a good explanation and then tell us, then, well, what, all that money that you used to give us, then what are you going to do with it? I just feel like it's just not right, and it just needs to be more transparent of everything that they're saying. And
I would dare say the majority, if not all of the residents that use that, do not realize that's not a Roy-funded asset.
Yep.
That if we go in there and shut the doors because Weber Human Services can't afford to fund it, and we can't afford to fund it as a city, it'll fall on this body right here saying, why did you take it away from me? The other thing that comes to my concern, and it's because I'm elected by by the people of this city, if we do take it on all ourselves and we fund it and it's funded out of the general budget, I don't want to say people from other cities don't matter, but if it's our residents that's funding it, how do we allow other cities, people from other cities, to just come use it free will
Right.
when it's being funded on the back of our residents. I don't think that's fair either.
Right, because as of now, West Haven and Hooper, they all come to our center.
Ours is the
And,
nicest
Yeah,
one.
ours,
There's
yeah.
people that come
Right.
from Washington Terrace, come
Yeah.
from
Right.
South Weber, a lot of different cities.
And it's just like everything else that they use of ours, other cities. They just need to help pitch in if they're going to use our facilities, so.
The complex all over again. Let's just
Right.
call a spade a spade. Let's just throw it out there. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
I
Do
actually
you
made
know
that
of
comment.
any other city that got a termination letter from Weber Human Services?
I think everybody.
To my knowledge, the four of us did. So there's us,
Have their
North
own?
Ogden, and then Washington Terrace.
Washington Terrace.
Didn't Washington Terrace decide to shut theirs down?
I don't know. I don't think so. That was some of the initial talks. They do have 3 new council members, and then also just throwing this out there. I don't know if they know exactly what is going to happen, and I know that from the WACOG meeting, they did present some information from North Ogden City,
Right.
and this is the direction that WACOG told them to go, is to have this committee come up with like alternatives.
I mean, it's a great asset to our residents, but we've got to define how much we put on the back of the rest of the residents that don't use it.
And so has this guy that wrote this letter ever been and visited and seen everything that our center has done, or is he just?
No, I do think he has a good idea and understanding, and Nobu works for him, and he's great to work with as well, and they do value.
Nobu was the last function I went to where they fed the seniors down at Emma Russell. Nobu
Yes.
was there side by side helping everybody.
Yeah, so I think
he's
they
got a
do
pretty good idea.
value it. I know one of the frustrating things for them is that everything wasn't equal to each of the different business units, and they want to make that, all
Because
symmetrical.
if we take on the administration of it, there's one full-time employee and a handful of part-time employees.
Yeah.
We're trying to find additional employees to staff different functions throughout the city, and we don't have the money to do that, let alone take on, a full-time and 5 part-times.
Well, I don't think you can make everything equal because they don't have a Kathy Privedel like we do. And she goes beyond,
She's
she
she's
goes,
an
like I
asset
said,
to the
she goes
city.
out and I was talking to her about it today, the fundraising that she does. And they just put her in charge of a brand new program, clear from people up at Morgan, to every one Tuesday a month, helping people who are caregivers. And they just gave her another new assignment, and she'll provide snacks and stuff for them. So I still understand what they're thinking about this, but we shouldn't be, just because we're not equal to everybody else. I mean, that's just because we're doing a good job.
Where does do we know where Weber Human Services derives their funding from? Is it from like federal grants? Is it at the
My
state
understanding
level, or-
is yes, it's mainly federal.
So if that's the case,
And
could
state.
we apply for grants as well?
To my knowledge, no, we
No.
cannot, because it's a county
So
function.
only the county has the
level.
authority to apply for those grants.
But if the county does away with it, can we apply for the grants?
Well, then
Well,
now you're
knowledge,
talking about
no.
statute has to be
Yeah.
changed.
Yes.
And remember, we're just one county, okay, of all the other counties in the state. So this issue is very complex, and
Weber County.
and we've got to find an answer. But the reason, and I think I can speak for Matt, the reason why Matt and I wanted you to hear this is the kind of topic that's going to get people talking. And they're going to call you and they're going to ask you, what's going on here? 2 things you need to walk away. First is we're going to have a conversation and a committee to kind of figure out the way ahead. And it will be all of us, all the cities, everybody that has involvement in this, because this is bigger than just Roy. We have people, as you said, Joe, all the way from South Weber that come to our facility. We got documentation. And we welcome the seniors. It's all about helping people who need help. I will tell you with some confidence, probably the best meal those people get, okay, are found here at $4 or no charge at all than they probably get during the week. And they get it every day because it's provided to them. They just can't afford a lot of things, and we're providing that service. The second thing you need to make sure is Roy City did not cause this. So when the call comes, and Joe was right, It's always about where they're going to say who's responsible. And I'm telling you, and Matt made it very
Want to
clear.
hang for it.
We didn't cause this. In fact, we didn't even look to see why this is happening, but we're going to find an answer. But just recognize is the citizens are going to be looking for answers. There's a lot of them who care, and they should care, and you need to be part of the solution, okay? And when they call you or contact you, you need to tell them what you know, and you know everything we know. And as Matt and I will be attending the meetings and getting more engaged in this, we will keep you on top of this thing because it's very sensitive and very serious. And if we don't do this right, to your point, Joe, tell me how we're going to go up there and reaffirm that somebody walking into that Hope Center because Roy City is elected to continue servicing and find out whether or not they live in Roy or don't. I would hate to see us in a position where he simply says, you can't enter the building unless you show me your ID card.
Who wants to put that on staff? 'Cause
I
that's
don't want to
ugly.
put that on staff. This is just foolishness. And the problem is we're hurting, probably, in my opinion, the people who we've hurt oftentimes too much. These are fixed income residents who basically are going to struggle when in fact they don't have a place to go to because of some decision. And we got to find the right answer.
Right.
But
And
we're not going to do it alone.
most of them, it's just getting them out of the house. Those are their friends.
Exactly.
You know, and that's.
You're right on, Ann.
Yeah.
We owe it to them to find the right answers, to work through a solution that's going to work. But we will do that, but just recognize the fact is that they're going to reach out to you and ask questions, and you need answers. Don't tell them you need answers. So, just don't point them to go to Weber Human Services. You're the one they're going to trust. They're the ones you get the answers, and we got to get it to you so you can do that. Okay. Matt, anything else you want to share on this one?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, good. We okay, council? This one's tough. I mean, we've had some others tough, but this
Yeah,
is
we just
tough.
got to do all we can do to just make sure that those seniors
best we
still
can.
can come and.
Yeah. It's just hard. Okay, city manager and council report, Matt?
Yeah, just a couple of things for you. In our last city council meeting, we talked about the old fire truck, the 1955 fire truck. We do have the title for that. It is costing Roy City nothing, zero. So Chief did go down and take a look at it. It's in great condition. We were talking about doing a ramp grant for that. And so we'll be submitting that by the 12th. But just wanted us to talk a little bit about the Stoffers. We did reach out to them. We talked about doing that. So they will be transporting the fire truck down to Roy City. We're planning on doing that sometime spring to do a push ceremony. So just wanted to update you on that. Also, along with those lines, ramp grant is due. We had this discussion last time at the 12th of January as well, so we're getting prepared for that. And then please watch your emails. I did receive some speed studies. They were action items from previous council meetings. In our next city council meeting, we're going to be talking about those as well. So I'll send those over prior to the city council meeting. And
I'm
that's
getting
it.
quite a few messages that more people want speed humps, which I don't think they realize how controversial they are.
Certainly less controversial than those.
Don't.
I won't say it. Good comment. I've got a couple of things, but council, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, I wanted to,
Please.
speaking of residents of Roy and seniors, there is a viable concern about what's happening with the Ogden Airport. I know you are a part of that.
My backyard is a part of it.
I've talked to the new mayor of Ogden City, which has a different thought on it than the previous mayor did. But there are a lot of residents that live in the mobile home park that are seniors, fixed income, they're residents of Roy. They are concerned of what's going to happen, and some businesses up in the area. We don't have the answers, obviously, but I think we need to do, and I'm sure you are, all we can to represent the best interests of our residents. I don't want to kick our residents to the curb so Ogden can have a nicety. If it was up to me, I'd get rid of the airport and put in another business depot. I think it would be better for the economy and better for Ogden City, but obviously I don't hold that vote, but I'm pushing that with the current mayor of Ogden that was sworn in tonight.
Yeah.
So what is that plan for, because I've had Jeannie Hall texting me and very concerned.
There's a lot of people concerned.
First thing is that, and let me just open the door to the reason why it's important that you read that and they read that. we had a discussion with Ogden, okay, not with the new mayor, that's coming next, but certainly with the economic development team. And there are some proposed changes. And ever since we've had those meetings, and certainly every meeting I've been in with Ogden, I certainly have shown and expressed my concerns associated with the long-range planning, as well as what are they doing? Some of that issues taking place at the Ogden Airport impacts Roy City directly. Whether we realize or not, Roy City owns 10% of that airport. It resides within Roy City boundaries. And as a result of that, we get nothing out of it. And that was because governments don't pay other governments' taxes. That's just the bottom line is. But bottom line is that the changes that they're being proposed and the things they were doing, we had some real concerns with. Here is the premise to why we're saying we want to get together. Ogden, and certainly we'll clear this with the new Ogden mayor who was sworn in today, is saying is that they're also feeling a little bit of the pressure as a result of some of the things that are taking place. They would feel very comfortable, and we're certainly trying to set the setting up to allow them to come in on a question and answer set and talk to our residents, specifically the residents who reside around, that airport. Glenda, hate to pin you out in this meeting, but you may very well be close enough that it impacts you as well, okay? Even though you're not directly on a street that borders the airport. So the residents who reside around the Ogden Airport, if we can get a town hall session and bring Ogden people to that meeting, which is the plan, and talk about this, answer the questions so we can calm the people down from this, I think that's the most important thing to do. And that's what we're going to try to do. I will tell you publicly what I'm saying has been in play for a long, long time, years now. But the long-range plan for the Ogden Airport is detrimental to Roy City. And if you have not seen their long-range plan, simply go to the Ogden Airport website, and there it is. If you can get through the 300 pages, you get down to about 250 or 260, you will see what I'm talking about.
Well, I think you're going to have a different change with the new mayor. He texted me tonight and says, I look forward to working with you on this, basically the city. He thinks we ought to be good friends and neighbors, not fighting against each other for a land war.
So do they want to expand the runway and have more?
Multiple things.
Let me see if I can answer your question. And Ann, it's a great question. We've also had meetings with now the new mayor of Ogden. He was not a mayor, but he certainly was a mayor-elect. And we've had a lot of conversation relative to Ogden airports on a variety of issues, okay? Economic development being one of them. But to your point, here's what is in the long-range plan, and we're going to work to get it out. And if you look at our 5-year strategic strategy plan, it's in there. It basically says the long-range plan of the Ogden Airport is to put a 1,000-foot runway extension on, I think, runway 32. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. But the one that's closest to Roy, okay, on the Roy border, okay, on the southwest corner. You put a 1,000-foot runway extension on that, the devastation to meet the runway protection zone requirements under FAA, it actually will shock you, as it shocked me.
Neighborhoods.
You're talking businesses, neighborhoods, churches. The only thing that can be in that runway protection zone is if you're raising rice or you're basically putting some type of field out there. Everything else in that runway protection zone has to be removed.
But can they do it without our approval?
No, and here's the unique part about that I reminded them a number of times, Ann, is that piece of property resides in Roy City, and it requires the Roy City Planning Commission and, equally important, the Roy City Council to approve any modification on Roy City land, to include a 1,000-foot runway. So even though it's in the long-range plan, you would have to approve that.
Yep. Well, and I've talked to a couple of state legislators, one of them being our own, the other one being my boss. They don't necessarily support what Ogden wants.
I
So
understand.
I don't think they're going to get the support of the state on it either. So
And they would
I
have
think
to get a
Ogden's going to
change.
find out they're going to have a pretty good battle on their hands. But like I said, the new mayor-elect doesn't seem like he wants to have a battle. He wants to come to a cooperative agreement.
He does. And those are his words exactly. So the question then becomes, that's certainly a big piece of it. that needs to be addressed. There's a piece in terms of what kind of development goes on the west side. That's the piece that continues the conversation, and we've had a number of meetings this last year on it. We will continue having that. But remember why we need to talk at town hall. If our residents, and they're smart enough, they know this stuff, so we're not basically blindsiding them. If there are issues dealing with the Ogden Airport that is troubling, you can certainly come to me and I can certainly tell you what I think. But maybe they ought to be talking to the people who make the decision. And this town hall is more about getting them in front of our city residents than it is about seeing us there. We certainly need to be part of that, but they're going to have specific direct questions to them, and Ogden City needs to answer to our residents. Or this is the other piece. Council, you are the land use authority for that property. If they do anything on that, certainly anybody can buy it, but you can zone it where the only thing you can put on there is basically cabbage. And there isn't anything anybody can do about that.
Works for me. Drop the ordinance.
And they know that. So it has to be, and I like cabbage. but just understand is that you have that authority. So just because they have it and they want it does not mean they will get it under their terms. So just recognize is at the end of the day, even a border adjustment, which is also talked about in there, the border adjustment has to be approved by both the City Council of Ogden and the City Council of Roy. If either body does not approve it, it is not approved.
We have to protect our residents.
And you have to protect them.
And we're not
So-
going to do it to make Ogden fat and happy.
No.
We need to do it in
There's
order
no
for them-
benefit in it for us.
So are you going to set up a town hall with them then?
That's the next step, but I won't do that in isolation. As we work, and I'll be working with Brody and Matt as we coordinate this effort, we'll talk about the things that we think they need to be prepared to talk to, and then we're going to make sure you're aware of it, and we're going to encourage you to invite the residents in any medium we have available to come to us in the library in a town hall conversation with their questions so that we can calm people from this issue. I don't like it. I don't like some of the things about it. But if the answers are going to be found, they're going to be found out of the mouths of Ogden City and not necessarily out of the mouths of Roy City. Let's get the right players in the same room to talk about it.
And if anybody's bored, I have the 318-page document of the master plan that I'll happily email
There
to
it
you.
is. It's 318 pages.
I need some white reading.
It's terrible reading, but it's all in there.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Any other comments about Ogden Airport? I got a couple of things I want to share.
Nope. I have a couple.
Please, go ahead.
Just really quick, we had talked about the crossing guard flashers on top of the cones. I was just thinking about this. Did that ever happen? Do you know?
Yeah, we're currently we have some hesitations with it.
Okay.
Because just like the orange flags when you're crossing the street, they actually say not to do that because it
False.
obstructs from what you should be looking at, and that's the pedestrian. So we've been looking into that.
Hmm.
I've reached out to somebody in the state. There's like a organization that does crossing, and I haven't heard back from them yet.
Okay.
So they submit things like posters and stuff that you can use online, but yeah, not a whole lot of good information out about it.
Okay.
So just don't
And-
want to do something that is negative, I guess.
Right,
So.
right.
Okay.
Okay. And then second, love the lights. Sad to see them being shut off soon. When is it that they turn them off?
It's in a couple of weeks.
So
I want to
it's-
say the 16th or something, Jeff, I don't know.
Second
yeah.
Monday, so next week.
Yeah, it's usually a couple. I
It's-
have to. So Rocky Mountain Power does give, they give us the power for those, and so I do have to submit when we're going to turn them
Turn
on
them
and
off,
off.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, keep us posted on that because they are, as you indicated, Sophie, really attractive, some of the best I've seen.
Yep.
Very favorable this time of year,
Get a
so
lot of
thank you.
comments on them, so yeah.
Yeah.
I got a text message from somebody from Colville that says Roy lights are their favorite.
Yeah. It's a great visual. Coming in and out of this city at night is incredible.
So can we leave the ones up at Harmon's like Glenda said?
Well, we took the action. We'll sit down and discuss it. We'll get a recommendation from both Parks and Public Works before we make a final decision. But certainly, as we work through the pros and cons, then we'll come back to the city council
No,
for
if we
final
could leave
direction.
the red and whites
I like
up
the
through.
lights on the street
I
signs,
know,
too.
because it's going to be Valentine's Day. Can't you leave it up through February? I mean, I love the
It's
line, the
year-round.
streets lined, those poles. It's just, it just gives you that hometown feel.
I know, but At the end of the day, Brandon, we gotta balance all this, so we'll do the best we can. But we'll take that action since it came up. Anybody else you have? Okay, I just got a couple of things. On Saturday at 10 o'clock, the West Davis Corridor ribbon cutting ceremony is going to happen. I'm not so sure y'all have a big interest in that, but I do have a big interest. I've certainly been invited to
Is
that
it really going to
ceremony.
be done? I mean, I drive by it every day, and I think you guys are nuts.
I'm telling you right now is that we're doing the cutting. They're doing the cutting. I'm just going to stand back and watch. And then as far as I can do it, if I can, I'll be the first car on that road driving north if I can make it happen.
It just doesn't come far enough north.
I know, but that's another thing we're working. The other thing, and I mentioned this, and I think Matt has an answer, but Michelle, this certainly may be applicable to you. On the trail, and I'm talking about the DNRG trail, right there at 5600, just off to the south of there, there's this great little green bench.
He's now emailing you too?
No, I drove by.
No, I've had several emails about making sure we preserve that bench.
Well, that's my point, because if you look at that progress right there, the bottom line's going to be is that they're making a corridor and it's going to take that bench out if something doesn't happen. Matt has the answer.
So I did reach out to them some time ago because I believe the individual reached out to
me,
Joe, a while ago about it. So I reached out to 5600 team, and they said that they're going to put it to where that trail comes back down for the crossing. They're going to put it right there.
Okay.
they're
So it's going to go
conserve it.
further south.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Just right off of 56.
Yeah, just go south on the trail. It's just where it's sitting right now, and the reason I asked the question, I sent, I'm sorry, I didn't send it to you, but I asked the question was more along the lines of, they're clearing that space. If you go down there to the apartments, the condominiums there, yeah, the chateaus, I am telling you, that fence they're putting up tonight, I don't know how they're going to get out their back door. It's that close.
They should have taken that along with several of the Ivory homes.
I know. They were offered. The decision was made. All I'm saying to you would be is if you kind of look at how it's being cut, because they're going to start south work in the spring, that bench is right in the middle of its way. There's no way they can work around
Chateau Park loses 2 of the carports for 2 of their housing units.
Yep.
And then the fence is going to be basically right at the back door, just like those Ivory. That one Ivory home on the corner, they just need to take it.
I understand.
You're talking 2.5 feet off a sound wall.
I know. These are the issues. I will tell you, we can try to influence. Matt will validate this. We have meetings. Brody, you're part of those meetings. When it comes to UDOT, we can influence. They've even said that we can decide on reference to those houses. We can, but just recognize there's a lot of politics, a lot of issues working through that. But we do meet with them on a regular basis on this issue. So here's what I heard. There's a plan by UDOT. We'll confirm that in our next meeting we have with them to move that bench further south so it intersects where the ramp's going to come up. I think that's what I heard. Okay, so hopefully you'll be in good shape there. Council, is there anything else you want to talk about before we go for a motion, Joe?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, I got a
I'll
motion to
second it.
adjourn from Joe. I got a second from Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Okay, any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. Great meeting.
I did. I said that's
They ever been in oppose?
It's a fun one. I went through it.
Bob, those one people that live